We are so honored that Grab is going to share with us today their AI strategy. First time they're doing it publicly. So we're so excited about it. I think we should start with what you discussed earlier during the TV interview. Could you please tell us where you're deploying your investment, how you're hiring in terms of AI strategy?
Cool. Yoolim, thanks for having us here as well. So AI, it's not something we've talked about publicly before, but it's definitely been part and parcel of how we've been able to scale and grow and serve our customers and Southeast Asians better to date. There's a lot of it that you actually see in the daily interactions with our Grab app, and a lot of it that you definitely don't see that's happening and churning in the background, right? So what Yoolim was referring to was, I was actually speaking to Haslinda on TV earlier, where we shared that to date, over the last 12 months, Grab has already invested more than $100 million worth of talent, tooling, product partnerships that are very focused on helping to find the best ways of smartly and intelligently using our data to serve our customers better. And more importantly, as we always say at Grab, it's only part of the journey. Going forward, we're looking to grow this investments even further. And over the next 12 months, we're increasing that development investments to $150 million. That's broadly where we are. Now, as we were invited to attend this event, we were thinking, OK, these were the numbers. That's what we've done. And yes, we're happy to share it. But let's step back and think about this. Holy crap-a-moly. We actually don't think we know of any other Southeast Asian company that has invested this much consistently into AI for Southeast Asia. And we're happy that we get to bear this flag today to just share why it's truly important to localize our services. And we can talk more about that later on.
Yeah, sure. So it's a lot of money we're talking about. So I think certain governments invest that kind of money. So where does the bulk of the money go into specifically? Is it hiring engineers, partnership? You have many partners. So could you kind of drill down a little bit?
I think all of the above. Like most things, doing only talent or only tools or only partnerships is not going to work. You need the entire ecosystem. And let me share how we are thinking about the future, investing that $150 million going forward, right? We look at it in two dimensions, going broader and going deeper. What do I mean by going broader? So to date, Grab has already very much been AI-powered. Going forward, we want to help create a situation where Grab becomes AI everywhere. And in order to do this, this means that we need to help educate, empower, and tool all of our Grabbers, not just our 300-plus data scientists and AI experts, and not just our 2,000-plus technologists, engineers globally, but all 7,000 Grabbers globally to help understand what is the power of AI, what is possible, what kind of tools can you use for it, what kind of problems can you solve with it, so that whenever they're interacting with any customers, solving any particular problem, whether it's with our passengers, our merchants, our drivers, they can spot opportunities and figure out, hey, this is a critical thing and lever that we can pull to make it just that much better and much more scalable.
So you mentioned 2,000 engineers globally. How many of them are actually working on machine learning and data science?
Yeah. I mentioned it earlier, 300-plus AI and data science experts globally as well. And I think what we are trying to do as part of that breadth is to make sure you don't need to be a data scientist or an AI scientist to be able to understand, use, and tool and equip yourselves to take that forward in their day-to-day work.
Are you planning to hire more? Since you have a lot of money?
I think probably everybody in this room is planning on hiring more, right? And we have an endless conversation of what does it take to actually get the best global AI talent. And so far, we've been very thankful. We've been able to help build that ecosystem of talent, not just in Singapore, Indonesia, but we're also growing in Vietnam and Malaysia right now.
In terms of Grab's AI playbook, do you have any model? Like, there are a lot of Chinese leaders, American leaders. Microsoft was talking a lot before us. And Microsoft is an important investor in you. So is there a playbook that you follow?
If there's one guiding principle, it's never build technology or AI for the sake of technology or AI's sake. Ultimately, the reason why we ended up using AI is because we want to find the smartest, best ways to solve problems that we see our customers facing every single day. That's one guiding playbook. And the second one is we want to help unleash this at scale so that everyone at Grab, and hopefully beyond Grab in the future, the whole of Southeast Asia, can help think with an AI-led mindset. That's how we start. Now, in terms of how we look at partnerships, which areas do we focus on and go deep on, which areas do we partner on? Good news is also the guiding principles are the same for the whole of Grab, and we apply the same principles for AI, which is if there's someone who can out there who can do things faster, smarter, better than us, partner with them, right? Only do things that nobody else is, investing on, because we need to solve a custom problem, and therefore we need to invest our own resources to build it. Specifically, I think we had Microsoft just on stage. We're already working with them on many different initiatives, some of which are AI. And we've had great success initial conversations working on things like facial recognition to improve passenger and driver verifications. A big component in terms of making sure you're getting into the right car with the right driver, for example. And all of that is now only possible because we have AI technology that can do it at scale, right?
Great. So I wanted to ask you briefly about SoftBank Masayoshi-son, who is a very, very important backer of Grab, and he's a very big advocate of AI technology. So does he talk to you some secret stuff, like some tips, insights that he doesn't publicly share?
If it's secret stuff, it will stay secret. But I think we are in a very fortunate position where SoftBank, Microsoft, many other partners and investors share that vision that we believe technology AI is the future of how we can help unleash more human potential, right? And as you mentioned, Masayoshi-san, he and my dear co-founder, Anthony, they talk a lot, and it's good that we're very aligned. At the same time, I want to call a very important detail out, which is, for us, we're looking at AI for Southeast Asian problems. Again, we're not building AI for the sake of AI. So it's always geared toward what is the problem that our passengers, drivers, merchants, consumers are facing, and then how do we find the best technology to solve it? And oftentimes, nowadays, it's AI enabled.
So he understands that you have to develop different types of maybe localized. Okay. We have prepared a special video for the audience. First time anyone seen outside Grab. And this is how to show how they're using AI in one of the products. So can we have the video, please? Oh, awesome. So can you just explain to us briefly what we showed?
Before I do that, I want to give a big shout out to the Grabbers who were involved in preparing that. They prepared it especially for this audience, so I have no idea how they continue to do amazing stuff like that so quickly. So thank you, Grabbers, virtually and physically as well. But if you were to just take a step back and think about what that video was trying to represent, it just shows that in the core starting product that we started Grab with, which is ride-hailing, it literally powers everything that you think seems like a simple interaction, which is I open my app, oh wait, it thinks that I want to hit home right now based on my historical ride profile. So it's a one-click booking for me. Once you place a booking, it's not a simple allocation of who's the closest available driver. We actually crunch up to 50 different attributes to make sure you find the best suited driver for you. And what does that mean? For example, if we were to just allocate to the closest driver, and we know that driver has a history of not liking to go to Woodlands, the first thing they'll do is cancel. That's a terrible experience for the driver. That's a terrible experience for you, right? So what we have been able to do is, based on historical predictions, future predictions, weather, time of day, whatever it is, 50 different things, figure out, hey, maybe not this driver, maybe not the next one, but the third one. So that every time you place a booking, not just the passenger, but the driver also has a seamless end-to-end undisrupted experience. More importantly, that's only one tiny slice of how AI actually powers Grab to date. It started in ride-hailing. Even today, for your food recommendations, if you were to open your Grab app all today, you'll see different front screens coming up. Mine will probably look very different than yours, and it's not random. It actually has some intelligence behind it. Also, thinking again about merchants and drivers, what we're trying to do is use their historical earnings potential to figure out if we can more smartly credit score them and give them microloans that they otherwise would not have had access to. These are some of the many different ways of which AI actually powers Grab. One last one that I actually want to talk about, because it was triggered by the last panel. All technology can be used for good and bad reasons. And I will say that Southeast Asians are quite creative when it comes to fraudulent activities. And even with ride-hailing, we know industry standards in this region is like 20 to 30% of all ride-hailing transactions were fraudulent. How do you get ahead of the curve and continuously use the latest technology to prevent that and bring that as low as possible? And at Grab, because we've been investing in it for years, our fraud rates are like less than 1%. And trust me, there is, of course, people who are helping to make that happen, but it's all AI-enabled.
Excellent. So I think when it comes to AI and ride-hailing, transportation, people kind of imagine the day when we're going to have autonomous driving in Southeast Asia. So I thought it'll be interesting to kind of pose a question to the audience, very interesting question about the future. So can we have the polling question, please? So when do you expect large-scale driverless ride-hailing to happen in Singapore? Next year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years or more?
Wow.
Wow. Optimistic people. We actually talked about it. I'm more pessimistic, but what do you think, Ling?
Yeah, I was also quite surprised with the results. Next year, for sure, is not something I was expecting. And this question is an important one for all of us, not just for us at Grab, but I think everyone here, because AV, autonomous vehicles, will very drastically change lives for the better, and we need to think about what does that mean. Now, before we get there, how close are we to this in Singapore and Southeast Asia? Singapore is unique in the world of Southeast Asia. For those of you, and I love to quote this because it's the most visual memory in my mind, how many of you have been to Hanoi and tried to cross an intersection with all the motorbikes that had 360, right? The road goes like that, but you still have people doing that, It's amazing. And my only tip is if you want to cross, just look like you have all the confidence in the world, look straight and walk, because they can sense that fear in you, right? I don't know when AV will be able to figure that out. And because of that, I think our approach for AV at Grab has been, again, there are clearly lots of very smart different players who are investing a lot into this and are making humongous strides. There's a lot being done, there's a lot being achieved, but there's still a lot more to be done. And therefore, we're taking a partnership-first approach for our AV strategy.
Right. So definitely more than 20 years, right?
I would say less than 20, but definitely more than one.
Great. I wanted to kind of ask you about the Uber IPO, because it's such a big event in Southeast Asia when the deal happened in 2018, and so much has changed, which affects everybody's lives. And we've seen the IPO with a lot of interest, but the result has not been so great. And there's a lot of questions about their path to profitability and so forth. So has that changed the way you run Grab, seeing the IPO?
So I think one thing, or actually probably two things that are really important to contextualize when we're thinking about, hey, Uber's IPO, Lyft's IPO, and what does it mean for us? Because we're actually very different companies operating in a very different environment and region and geo. So to be specific, Grab has moved beyond pure ride-hailing quite a while ago now. Last year, we launched our super app strategy, and we've seen tremendous phenomenal growth. We've talked about how we wanted to develop the ride-hailing food payments ecosystem as part of our critical core super app offerings. And to date, we're already the #1 most preferred customer choice, not just in ride-hailing, but in food and digital e-wallets in Southeast Asia already. And because of that, our companies are actually quite different and are thus not apple-to-apple comparisons. Secondly, because of all the changing macroeconomic trends, it's important that we contextualize it for us at Grab, we think about what does it mean for us, what's happening in Southeast Asia. What we've observed to date is that there's still a lot of interest, financial interest, growth investment interest in Southeast Asia. And it's coming from the States, it's coming from China, it's coming from Europe and many other places. And because of that, I guess that's why we've seen such fortunate growth and traction in our historical fundraising. And that's why we're equally as excited to make sure we're building a sustainable, durable business for Southeast Asia's future, irrespective of whatever macro cycles are going on.
Okay, great. Lastly, we're running out of time, but I have to ask you about the digital banking license in Singapore. So what's the rationale for doing that, and how keen are you? Because there's already a lot of players.
I think the best person for you to ask is the authorities. But I think if I were to simply share what my takeaway from this is, and I would love to applaud MAS, Singapore government, for their continued efforts, not just on the digibank front, but always to be pro-innovation and thinking about the next wave of whether it's AI, whether it's digital banking, whatever technology is happening in the world, how can it positively shape and influence the lives of people in Singapore? I think that's the trajectory that they're trying to take with this digital banking investment. Why? Because as we have seen with new technology, many new opportunities come up. Before Grab, if I had polled my mom, my dad, my good friends, my not so good friends, who would have thought smartphone technology could have helped change the ride-hailing industry in Southeast Asia? All of them would have said, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? It doesn't make any sense. We already have private cars. Singapore already has great MRT, public infrastructure system. It's not going to matter. It's a waste of time. They did tell me that, by the way. but look where things are, because with new technology, if you keep an open mind and you're always focused on what are the problems, how can we more smartly shape it, that's what they're trying to create an environment to do so with this digibanking scenario.
I have so many questions, but we have clearly run out of time. So
Sorry about
thank
that.
you so much
Thank
for
you.
all your wonderful insights.